Hi everyone, this is Bruce Perrins, Kilo 6 Bravo Papa, and today I'm talking about building a remote ham station, which I am doing, where you can have antennas as big as you want. So wouldn't it be fun to have a 5/8 wave vertical on 160 meters, an array of full-size beverage antennas, really large wire antennas with multiple supports, full-time access to a great ham station regardless of where you live, and full legal power without the worries of interfering with the neighbors. So space, that's the final frontier. Most of these things are a matter of space rather than cost. But space is expensive depending where it is. So everywhere is online now, and that has made a really big difference. Today, most sites can connect using a cellular modem, perhaps using a beam antenna. If you ask your phone company for a wire, they won't even do it anymore. There are 500 kilobits per second data available. Companies which are resellers of other carriers, for example, resellers of T-Mobile, are offering these for $15 a month. They're good enough for both audio and control. The data latency is okay. And tomorrow, we get Starlink. So Starlink is a high bandwidth satellite internet with low latency, supposedly good enough for gamers, with every site that can see the sky on the internet. So there's a point here, which is buy land now before Starlink is out of beta and everyone realizes that you can work remotely, as a lot of us do now, and any land at all has a sufficient internet connection. I used to have a big PC with noisy fans as my main home server. So this is what I have now. It's a Raspberry Pi 4, 8 gigabyte RAM, and it's got a rather large SD card in it as the main operating system disk. And then there is a 4 terabyte rotating disk sitting underneath it. It's a laptop disk. And this is my backup server. It backs up all my remote systems and all of my home desktops every evening. I'll probably put a RAID drive array on it. They certainly have those for USB 3. But the point is, this is a perfect server for a remote station. It doesn't use much power. It's more than powerful enough for SDR and anything you would want to run on it. It runs a variation of Debian Linux, which I actually was part of the creation of about 20 years ago. Um, it's got a built-in watchdog timer, so it will recover from crashes. Not that I've actually caught it crashing yet. It has a 64-bit processor with 4 threads and floating point. It can take power from any 5-volt supply. So what you do is you just wire the right leads on a USB-C cable, or I think there may be another way to feed it in via pins. It has a low power budget. It runs really well on a micro SD card, and you can plug in any USB 3 peripheral. And it doesn't have the problems of older Raspberry Pis where the USB was unreliable. As you can see here, I have it in a metal case. There's a little window for the Wi-Fi, which you could actually cover up if you wanted. But this solves a lot of the RFI issues that I would have if I had a bare Raspberry Pi. I'm using Backup as backup communications. This is not tested yet. Um, but I know that I can reach the APRS network from my station, can hear them quite well. And I have a 50-watt packet transceiver, so I should be able to reach them. Um, so, what would I use Packet for? As a backup for alarm notifications. So, if the main uh, cellular modem goes out, I would still receive them. Um, for power switch commands, if the modem or the computer fails. So I have a remote controllable via Ethernet 12-volt switch. So I can reboot the main computer using it. I can turn any other equipment on and off. Um, the rest of the time, cellular and packet would be a gateway to APRS.FI, just for people who were driving down Highway 97. So here's the land. Obviously, it doesn't look really desirable. I bought 10 acres of land in McDowell, California, which is far northern California, about 45 minutes drive from Klamath Falls. I bought it on eBay in 2013 for $4,500 sight unseen. So far, doesn't look like a really great deal. I mean, this is obviously desert land. It seems to have a lot of dark, rocky looking stuff. This is how it looked on Google Maps. The photo is actually cropped to the corners of the lot. And it turned out after I bought it that the seller owed back taxes on the land I had just purchased. So I was stuck with, I think, a $1,200 bill. After I complained, the seller paid the bill off. Which is, more than you can expect when you buy land on eBay. Do your research. I could have called or emailed Siskiyou County and figured out that there were back taxes on the lot. The staff at various counties are really helpful over the phone or email, and tax information is available over the web once you have the parcel number. So why did I get a good deal? I got 10 acres for $4,500 there in California. I had a naive seller selling land from relatives' estate. This meant they didn't care about it. They'd never seen it. Their goal was to get it sold. I got a better price than I should have. The land wasn't considered farmable at the time since 2/3 was on a hill. I think a pot farmer would not have a problem with the hill, but pot farming is actually still not legal in Siskiyou County. So here's the view once I got there. So much prettier than the overhead view from Google. Kind of place, I wouldn't mind camping. This is 5,000 feet high. The main crop around here is hay. There are illegal pot farms on 3 sides. They have to behave because, they know I'd report them if they didn't. So they're not a problem. 1/3 of the site is level. The rest is a hill facing left. There's more than enough room on the level part to build a whole block of houses. There are unobstructed low DX angles northwest and south. Any antenna on the hill would have low angles to the east because of the hill. Behind it, the slope continues all the way through my property and above it. So I can count on this, 20 or 15-degree slope to lower my DX angle to the east. So let's get to the ham radio part. I've been working on this project for 3 years, driving up for a few days every couple of months, and I'm about to get to permanently installing the ham radios. So although I can tell you about field day at the site, I'm not operating remotely yet. And for field day, I just put a dipole up from the edge of my hill to the container, and that was about 15 feet high. So not running any super antennas yet. Getting there. This is the worst part of the road. Off-road tires are definitely necessary. I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee, which I have to tow my trailer. So it was 5 hours and 45 minutes on paved roads from Berkeley. That's without the lunch stops. 1.6 miles on gravel, a quarter mile on maintained dirt. Maintained dirt is where they pick up the rocks. 1/4 mile on unmaintained dirt. This is because the users of the road from there on probably just our local pot farmers and me. So they don't care quite so much about it. They might not live there. I don't know. In winter, when this is mud, you can pick up 100 pounds of mud in the wheel wells, and they stay there for a couple of months. So obviously in this photo, I've gotten to work. So I have this dirt road that goes across the property. I don't have a road up the hill. It's possible, although there's volcanic rock there, so possibly a lot of work. But certainly you can walk up the hill. And so I've brought in some 4-inch conduit and some 2-inch pipe to run water pipe and potentially gas and electric across my little road. And you can see I have a 450-gallon water tank sitting there. So having showers on your property if you're staying there are nice. The cliff is a lava tube. So you can see the rocks here. Lava tubes are often caves because the hot lava runs out of the insides while the outsides solidify. So walking around on the property, one of the first times I'd been there, I found an animal den on the hill, so an opening in the ground, and cold air was coming out of it. A cold wind was coming out of it on hot days. So that means there's a cave. And I've not yet attempted to explore the cave. Anytime you pay $4,500 for 10 usable acres with a cave, you're doing just fine. So I was happy about this deal. However, I bought this on eBay, and that should raise lots of red flags. If you've got enough money, use a real estate agent, not eBay. If you're on eBay, you're trying to get a really good deal without being ripped off, you will probably get ripped off. I've actually not seen a deal this good on eBay since I bought my lot. Prices would be higher today. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. If you do this, please only spend an amount that you can afford to lose 100% of, plus any taxes due on the land. Only buy property available for final sale. Do not buy seller-financed property. Don't assume someone else's payments. You won't get a good deal that way. You only get good deals at auction, and often not even then. You won't get the title for seller-financed lots until they're fully paid, so you won't really own them. And a lot can go wrong between now and then. If your financing seller dies, the estate doesn't know anything about the property, good luck. Don't buy mining claims. They're duplicative of other existing claims, and thus they're worthless. People file claims on the same land. that other people have already claimed. Sometimes people file claims without ever actually being there. It's not how they're supposed to do it. Claims don't give you usable rights like owning a property, and they expire if you don't file your paperwork on time every year. So if you don't send in a form in payment, your claim is no longer yours every year. Miss it once, it's gone. Don't buy a timeshare on eBay or anywhere else. Uh, the maintenance fees are much more than you would spend vacationing without a timeshare. They don't sell for a fraction of what you pay for them. In general, they're not a good deal. Do your research. Are there back taxes on a property that you're considering? What is the zoning? Can you build anything? There's lots of property that is unbuildable. Are there any other special rules? For example, lots in my area, but not mine, have a deer habitat. And because of that, they can only build a certain number of structures. I think it's one within 40 acres. I only own 10 acres, so if any of my neighbors built legal structures, I would not be able to build one. Fortunately, that rule doesn't apply to my property. Um, does the county permit you to camp on your land? Siskiyou County does. And what temporary structures are permitted? So most land sold on eBay will be unbuildable. The zoning permits no building at all. It may require a lot size larger than you own. The zoning types aren't appropriate. For example, they may say no residence, etc. If the lot is near a body of water and there are no building septic permits available due to pollution or coliform in the water, you're stuck. And a lot of lots in Lake Tahoe and near the Russian River are like this. You can't build without a septic permit. That is for your cesspool. Um, so when you go to get your septic permit, there's a percolation test, which is necessary. That shows how long it takes water to percolate into the ground. There's no building without that. Um, so what about unfarmable land? This can be a good deal if you don't intend to farm. My own lot is unfarmable because 2/3 of it is on a hill. Lots of former farmland is being sold because sufficient water for agriculture is no longer available. If you go up in Klamath Falls right now, there is a lot of former farmland on the market. I've not seen the prices, obviously. I think people are trying to convert it to housing, but there might be bargains available. So what are the rules where I have my land? This is Siskiyou County. My land is zoned for farming. I can have a structure on the land. I can camp 30 days a year. Nobody's counting the days when I'm there. I've never seen a police officer. I can have a freight container as a temporary structure. So that's not permanent foundation. A mobile home is permitted as a permanent residence. There are design rules, but they're not really bad. And a well and septic are required for residents. They won't actually give you a postal address until you put in both your well and septic. Um, so right now, the farmer next door gives me water whenever his irrigation pump is running. He likes that I don't grow pot. His agricultural well is at 240 feet, so it might be up to $20,000 for me to build one. The land passes a percolation test for septic. It could cost $5,000 to $15,000 for a septic system. I don't have any of this stuff right now. That's for another day. So this is the shelter that I have on the site at the moment. It's a one-trip freight container, essentially brand new. It came from Asia once. It's a high cube. The point to that is that it's a higher height so that you have nice headroom inside, and you've room to insulate it if you want. Both the floor and the ceiling could be insulated and still have enough headroom. It's watertight until you start drilling holes in the roof. So I don't drill the roof at all. Everything on top of the container is glued, and there is great glue, and that works perfectly well. Because more freight comes our way than goes the other way to Asia, and it's not economical to ship empties back there. You can get these things. They're not dirt cheap, but you can get them for $5,000 to $7,000 for a brand new one trip freight container. Much less, we're talking $2,000 to $4,000 for a used container, which is watertight. Um, so it's a good shelter for your radio and anything you want to keep at your site. It is a Faraday cage until you start drilling holes in it. If you screen them off, it may still be one. Um, and this is how I get power on it at the moment. This is 1,200 watts worth of power, at least in the Mojave Desert, at high noon on the equinox. That's how they specify them. But it's much more power than I'm using at the moment. Um, you can tilt these up. I leave them flat at the moment so that no one sees they're there. Um, this is a solar controller. It's from a Pever, EPEVER, which is a Chinese brand from eBay. The PC is beautiful. It's as good as any US brand. It's been trouble-free for years. Get MPPT, not PWN. So that's maximum power point tracking, not pulse width management. The array on the roof is about 160 volts with my 4 panels in series. The batteries start charging before visible sunrise. This is stepping that 160 volts down to 24 volts. Currently, it's a 24 volt bank. This controller can go up to 48. It happens that the buck regulators that I can get go from 24 to 12. I would have to have a second buck regulator from 48 to 24 if I put in more batteries. But the buck regulators are 30 amps each. They're cheap. Currently, I have 4 deep discharge batteries from the Walmart and water recovery caps. The water recovery caps take the hydrogen gas and they catalyze it back to water. They actually do work. I'm away from there for months at a time, and when I come back, the batteries don't always need filling. Don't buy AGM batteries. AGM are sealed. They're really nice for off-road vehicles because the acid doesn't come out no matter how you shake them, and the plates are reasonably tough. But they're expensive for what they are, and you can't replace the electrolyte. So if you overcharge them, they will vent the electrolyte and you can't put them back, so they're ruined. So I prefer the flooded batteries. I buy distilled water on my way up at the Walmart, and it costs $1, and I fill the cells, and that's it for a few months. So here's a tripod. It's glued to the roof. It is not going anywhere. And the bigger antenna supports won't be attached to the container. Again, here you can see the land. It's pretty as all heck. I think I got a reasonable deal on it. So the roof is actually thinner Then the rest of the container, you can see the corrugations aren't as deep. Be very careful that you do get one with a metallic roof. They also have ones with plastic roofs. I don't think they're going to last because the UV is going to destroy the plastic, and you can't stand on them, and they're not a Faraday cage. But this is probably 20 gauge on the roof. When you walk on it, it's like a drum head. You can only have a 240-pound person, one 240-pound person walk on it, not two. And when I glue things to it, I do it from a ladder because if you walk on um, the roof flexes and then the glue will separate before it cures. Um, So there's the cellular modem antenna. I get edge cellular data on my phone as soon as I climb onto the roof. The cell site is in Doris, California, which is 9 miles away. I can't actually see it from the roof, but I think I've got close to a clear line of sight. They're just trees in the way. Thermal management is important. I should have bought a white container. I'm eventually going to have to paint this one. Summer, you can have a 100-degree day and 45 degrees night. It is really difficult to get out of the sleeping bag at night. You have to spend a couple minutes warming back up once you get back in it. You'll need an automatic fan. So this particular one is for an RV. It has a door that opens and closes. That failed after 2 years. I haven't figured out why yet. Um, but the fan is still running automatically. Uh, if I sleep in this container, the wall radiates heat at sunrise. The container is 18 gauge steel, but it's not an armored safe. So I cut this hole 100% with Ryobi battery powered tools. So this is the Ryobi air cannon. They work well, but you'll need several of the larger Ryobi batteries for it, and you have to keep them charged. So I run this in the daytime on a warm day so that I can work in the container. I also have a swamp cooler, but I haven't tried it yet. I bought a lot of Ryobi One Plus battery tools for my RV. I just kept buying them for this project. They're the only brand with an easily available 12-volt charger for the tool batteries. So the Makita Nibbler is the only generator tool I use. All else is 12 volts. So this is a metal nibbler. It punches little notches in the 18 gauge Corten steel of the container and just keeps moving. It is incredibly good at cutting that steel. It would cut a full-size door opening in 5 minutes. The longest part of this is drilling your 1-inch starter hole to get that cutter in. Oil the nibbler and oil what you're cutting, and the nibbler head will last much longer. I think that it's about $65 to replace that entire head and the anvil. The tool was about $120. So there's not much point in taking a strong container and cutting it full of holes. There's a double glass sliding door. I couldn't find a good picture of it, with a screen behind the container doors. There's light and air and a big window. Bugs are shut out when the container is occupied. All the fans, vents, elevated wire entries are out of reach of the casual jerk without a ladder. That's the advantage of the high cube. The farmer next door can see the container from his home. He's had to deter one uninvited visitor so far. The guy claimed to have bought the land. About security, I bought these really supposedly good ABUS disc locks. They have a very unconventional key that's not supposed to be pickable. It turned out that at the time I bought them, all the dealers were selling the same key number for keyed the same locks. I think Abus may have cleaned up their act since then. Um, but beware of keyed the same locks. If your locksmith is not rekeying them, do not buy them at all. So I have a few of those locks and a combination lock both, in the hope that that makes it a little less hard to get through the locks. You can lock a container door really well, and there are a lot of things that clamp onto it that you can buy that make the locks harder to go through. But anybody who wants to get in will cut their way in. It helps to have a neighbor who can see that. The roof is definitely the way to do it if people have a ladder, because it's much thinner metal. Um, we had to keep the empty water tank in view of the neighbor until the local water tank thief, who is well known to the farmers, they knew who he was, he got killed in a police pursuit. There have been no problems since then. So solar panels are flat right now so that nobody can see that they're there. They still get lots of power. Everybody there has guns. You get a nut, he might see your panel and shoot a hole in it. So for now, I have them invisible. There are lots of signs there that people have shot at. Um, so I do sleep in it when I'm there. You can join the layer below trailer trash and camp in your container. It's easier than pulling my RV. It would be a total of 11 and a half hours, um, especially on the dirt road. Um, Insulating the container is on my project list. So this is a compressor fridge from a truck cab, and sold used on eBay. It really looked new when I got it. It's got the same Danfoss compressor as the $1,000 yacht fridges. And as you can see, I've got my charger on top, and all my USB stuff is charging as well. This is all plugged into the buck regulator. I have a temporary wiring board here. It's just leaning on the back of the container. That will be replaced with a permanent one that's bolted to the back of the container. Um, so it's like camping. You can see there's pizza in the oven. There is a toilet with battery flush. It's $100 on Amazon. It splits in two pieces. One piece has the fresh water, the other piece has the not fresh water. And you take the piece with the not fresh water outside and dump it at the end of your stay. Uh, Everything with water in it has to be drained before the winter. You don't want it damaged by a freeze. Um, the cot has the absolute warmest sleeping bag I can find. It gets very cold up there at night. We're at the end of the season now that I can sleep in the container. It's getting below freezing at night. I did get a sealed combustion heater. So this thing is supposed to not discharge any carbon monoxide inside the container. It's got a coaxial chimney coming out the back where the outside is the input and the inside is the output. But without insulation, this is just for warming up when I get out of bed in the morning. That is necessary. It is otherwise not warm enough for a long time when you get up in the morning to get out of the sleeping bag. So far I've done field day there in the RV. I haven't operated it as a permanent site. The bad news is that I can receive neighbors' solar controllers in the daytime. That was using a north-south dipole stretched from my hill to the container, only about 15 feet up. It was pretty bad on 40. I'm going to try it again with an east-west antenna. Hopefully, they're mostly from our friendly hay farmer who was to the south. I'll reposition the antenna and move it up the hill and work with him to attenuate the noise that he emits. So, what about astronomy? On a moonless night, when it's not cloudy, you go out and the Milky Way hits you in the face. It is so bright and just totally unlike the suburbs. You soon realize just how badly we've given up the night sky in the suburbs. It is really sad. And one of my 8-inch telescopes is up there permanently for me to use. People keep bothering me to make an automatic dome. And I'd have to have another money windfall. Um, so a container, if you don't cut lots of holes in it, has more security than a mobile home, but it isn't perfect. I spent a lot of time on making it livable so that I could do work or operate without dropping money for motels or driving the trailer for lots of hours and pulling it on the dirt road. Uh, the bare land is worth much more than I paid for it now, and more than I've spent on developing the property, and will only be going up in value. Lots of people are moving onto the gravel part of the roads. There's more traffic there. Because it's affordable housing with space, you could have a horse if you want, and quiet. Um, and about the ham radio part, so I expect to have the remote station running about a year from now. So what that means is I'll probably do some insulation of the container, ready to put in the permanent electrical board, and then equipment gets screwed onto that and gets nice lightning resistant feeds through the 18 gauge metal container. Those will be arresters. Um, there is lightning up there, not like Berkeley where we see it once a year. Um, I have my farmer friend dug a trench for me to get wiring conduit up to my hill, so I'm going to put some pipes in that. Be careful if you lay pipe for burying coax. You have to get the wiring angles for it, not the water pipe angles. Um, the Home Depot sells 3-inch ones. I'm using 4-inch ones, but they are specifically wiring conduit angles. And they have very gentle curves. The water pipe, your coax won't bend through it. I have tried. Um, so it's a little more expensive, but you can use water pipes for the straight part. Looks like ABS sewer pipes are probably the best deal. Um, Gluing them to vinyl is possible, um, and all PVC for the water pipes. So, about to have the remote station running a year from now. That works for me because as we get older, we downsize potentially. Maybe someday I end up in a senior citizens care place or something. I will have a remote station that I can operate, I hope. Um, so that's the end of the talk, and I'll go to questions and answers. Thanks very much.